Now I would like to invite to the stage the moderator, Chief Expert Mr. Jari Reini, who is leading national and international standardization work at National Land Survey of Finland. And together with our panelists and with you, our dear audience, you will try to figure out the way forward for Inspire. So welcome, Jari. And you can host the panelists in.
Okay, thank you. And please welcome our panelists here. I took the opportunity to take this seat because I'm walking around a little bit. But Bas, Michael, Leena and Ilkka, please come on the stage. While they are sitting down, there is a reminder that we have this live participation platform up and running again. So please send your questions. You have an excellent opportunity. You have 4 top-class experts here, and you can ask whatever you want, maybe related to Inspire and data sharing and other things more or less, but it's up to you. We have a moderator here also who may reject some of the questions. And please do not ask anything from me. Those are the experts. I'm such a happy person to be here, just asking from you, and that's only my task. So please send your questions to screen.io/inspire. But we also have right now a question for you about audience background. So let's see who's here. So can you, Pekka, put up? It's on the screen. So what is your main role in the geospatial domain? And you can pick up one. Oh my God, the font is quite big, but nevertheless, you can go online and fill your responses. But I first start with introduction to our panelists. So first of all, Bas Boers, welcome. Bas is a GIS professional from the Netherlands, having applied GIS in the fields of nature conservation, drink water distribution and road maintenance. He has hands-on experience with data from several different Inspire teams, and he is well known also making excellent challenges or submitting to challenges. So please welcome Bas. Then I have second in my list Mr. Michael Lutz. I believe most of you know him as well. He's leading Inspire team at JRC of the European Commission, responsible for the technical coordination of the implementation and maintenance of Inspire directive. For more than 15 years, he has been working on principles, guidelines, standards and tools to enable sharing, access, use and interoperability of geospatial data in spatial data infrastructures, also known as SDIs. So please welcome Michael. Third, my lovely colleague Leena Hallin-Pihlatie from National Land Survey of Finland. She has been at NLS Finland since February this year, but made a lot of work related to Inspire coordination, so that's very nice thing. And also a strong experience, more than 15 years in this domain. And you may know her quite well also as one of the facilitators of the Inspire Community Forum, which is doing excellent work also, the whole Inspire Community Forum. So welcome, Leena. And fourth, but not least, last but not least, Ilkka Rinne. He's the founder and the head of customer experience and interoperability at Spatial. Wide range of skills in IT, software development, data modeling, especially in Met Office domain has been one of his expertise OHM, observation and measurements, been involved in ISO TC211 work, very active in OGC, chairing different domain working groups and working on standards. And what else can I say? Top class, experienced professional. So welcome all. Now I have my first question to all. We may start, for instance, from Michael, who is here. What are your immediate reactions, remarks to Thorsten's presentation, in particular to his vision and to the obstacles and to the way forward he sees? Or do you see other major obstacles than what he presented? So please, Michael.
Thank you, Jari. I must say I really liked Thorsten's presentation. I think it's really good to take a step back and think about where we really want to go with Inspire. And we already discussed we should probably have him, invite him to the MIG meeting, the next one, and basically deliver that same speech to the member state representatives that are, let's say, more on the political level, because I think it really gives an interesting vision. Actually, in JRC, we've been discussing about this notion of data ecosystems as well over the past year or so. You may have seen we've launched, or we're about to launch a study on this topic as well. So we're really looking, thinking along very much the same lines to see how we can actually move from this kind of fragmented situation that we currently have to gather some more critical mass, to basically find incentives for all the stakeholders in the infrastructure to make more data available, to have more applications, to have more tools that can basically help people actually developing things, and basically to make it much easier to deliver on the challenges that we've just heard about. I think one of the main drivers at the European level is what I also tried to present 2 days ago in the opening words, is basically we have some developments happening at European level that are going the same direction. So we have the new Open Data Directive that you've heard about over the past few days with the high-value data sets, but we also have a new program coming up, the Digital Europe program, that will basically help developing and publishing through APIs these high-value data sets, and to set up data spaces, as they call it in the program, to support artificial intelligence, to support better policy making as well. So I think that is really going in the same direction, but we should really help the development in these other domains outside our geospatial comfort zone, to basically make use of the good data that we have. In terms of challenges, I really see the main challenge is to really find the incentives for everybody. So I think that is really the crux, and we've heard that. How can we make data providers, how can we incentivize to make the data more easily available? And I recommend everybody that wasn't in the room yesterday late in Thorsten's presentation at the last workshop yesterday, where they really documented all the efforts they had to get their hands on data. It is really difficult now to understand where the data is, but more importantly, can I use it? What are the licensing conditions? So for me, that is the big stumbling block. And I think the idea of having a platform model or data ecosystem can help with that, because if you look at GitHub, for example, it kind of strongly encourages for each of your projects to define a license. So if we have the platform basically encouraging and forcing people to actually do that when they want to publish their data on a platform, that they can only do it if they really clearly define a license in understandable terms in different languages, maybe using some core building blocks that describe the obligations, but also the rights that you have to use the data. I think that's going to be a big push, and then we can figure out all the technical issues that can come as a second step. But I think the first big thing is to get the data out there, have also spaces in public administrations to experiment, to try out things. So I encourage everybody to try and create these spaces in your organizations for people to play to try out new standards, to be bold and put your data out in the open. I know it's always a bit challenging, and we experience it with the tools that we provide, where we get a lot of also negative feedback. If things don't work, you're too slow, you need to be more open, you need to be more transparent. But that's good, because basically that pushes us to improve, and it basically gives feedback to make things better.
Thank you, Michael. Leena.
Thank you. My turn. So yes, I enjoyed the presentation of Torsten very much, and the idea of having a vision like that is of course motivating. And I've learned a lot during these few days. For example, that there's a 15-minute rules that applies to programmers or computer scientists, and I think that's something perhaps that we could build on here in our community, in a way that if a computer scientist gives in 15 minutes, if he can't figure out how to use the data in 15 minutes, then it's no use. So we should make it so easy for the developers to use our data. But then also coming from I'm helping the implementers, data providers. For them, it should be just a 15-minute job to do this harmonization. So both ways, it should be that easy. So I really encourage the community to focus on these both things, and also to remember that the data providers, they are GIS experts, so we can, if they think that Inspire makes sense, and if they themselves see the benefit of it, then they can also communicate the benefits to others. And what I know, a lot of good developments are going in this direction, but we need to make it so that these GIS experts, when they use Inspire harmonized data from services, they can get it to work in all the regular desktop and everything, not only the programmers, because we need the whole community to get this further. And there I quite liked also the solutions that Torsten brought forward, that in order for it to work in 15 minutes, we need to fill in the code list registry. That's really, really important to get these concrete steps. And what are my experience from national work, national harmonization work, it really is useful if you standardize on national level first to help the regional authorities, and then it's much more easy to provide something harmonized more up. So that was the comments from my side. Perhaps also I thought that Hanna, that gave one of the keynotes on Thursday, she said that they had used this Helsinki Loves Developers concept. Perhaps Inspire should launch something like Inspire Loves Users concept and try to, for example, continue the challenges. And what else can be done? Can we have some interactions with the users, including also the data providers as one of the users of the platform?
Thank you, Leena. And for those who are working on data harmonization or setting up services or looking into different tools and best practices, please visit Inspire Community Forum. It's a brand new tool, new, modern, web or mobile, whatever device friendly. You can do it. You can use it on the bus or in the metro if you have network connection. So take most out of that. There are hundreds of different questions, but also answers. It's a discussion forum. But yes, next to Ilkka.
Okay, thank you, Jari. I also very much liked the Torsten's presentation. I was actually lucky enough to to see some of his earlier presentations, earlier talking about the platforms, open data platforms and ecosystems. And I think he has a very nice vision, and also down to the practical means of actually implementing that vision. And I think that's what we could all learn from people like him, and that they're actually working to create something that is tangible and usable for all of us and also the users. I think one of the very important giveaways, I think, from this conference for me is seeing the actual relevance of semantical interoperability. Using the ontologies as Minerva's approach was very good, highlighting we really need to have something that is tangible way to define ontologies and turn that into extending the code list, which is already a good knowledge base, as Jake mentioned in his presentation. And I think there's a lot of this good, very concentrated knowledge already in the existing data models and the code list out there, but we still need to develop that further and take that to actual testing, actual use cases, see what's missing, but maybe not include everything in there, but allow extension when needed. And I think that's the way to create a conceptual model understanding that everybody can agree with. I think that's very important that if you are a data provider, in many cases that I've seen personally, they are thinking Inspire as an extra effort still. And that's what we should get rid of. It should be part of their work, making their work actually easier within their organization. So that means that the basic concepts and the models and a code list and all the semantic knowledge there should be something that they can immediately agree with their internal models and understanding of their field. And if they do that, if they adopt the model, the ideas there, then they will automatically also promote that outside the organizations, to the users, to the developer communities, and they will need to get means for communicating that. And that's, I think, what we're trying to achieve with kind of simplification, more developer-friendly approaches. But there's always this semantic model behind that, and we should stick to that. Because that's a common understanding of all of the data, Inspire data and beyond. And this is what we should not lose. So the encodings will change, the APIs will change over time, but if we can incrementally build on the existing conceptual models and the code list and all the knowledge there, then I think that will create a lot of value for both the organizations working with the data providers, using that information also internally, but especially for use cases where that information is really, really valuable outside those organizations.
Thank you, Ilkka. Very good points indeed. And then Bas.
Yeah. Well, what Torsten mentioned about the risks many organizations perceive, and I think these risks are not truly risks in all cases. So organizations should indeed be more convinced of the benefits of sharing data and what it could mean for a wider community. I've been working in drinking water distribution, and I've seen that, for example, information on pipelines, detailed information that can be really useful for research agencies, is not being shared because of the climate adaptation and things that needs to happen in that matter, and energy transition. Lots of things have to happen. Lots of activities have to take place in the ground, but many organizations feel like if we are the first to share our data, some others may profit, and we're not sure if we get the same in return from them. So this is a kind of attitude that really, I think, has no benefit for society as a whole. So that's a good thing to do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Of course.
So I like the discussion about the code lists and the extensions. And basically, you already mentioned the community forum. I think we really need to use the platforms that we have to share more of the work and the extensions that we're doing, also the applications and the need for data. So I encourage everybody to kind of put their experiences on the forum, also maybe the challenge groups to kind of post some news items or some posts on the community forum about their experiences with the challenges and maybe the things that they were struggling with. For the code list, I just wanted to say that basically, since Thorsten also mentioned that, if you are developing extensions or of the code lists in your countries or in your organizations, please share these with the community as well. There is maybe a little known and not well enough known tool that we have been working on for quite some years now. That's called the Registry of Registries, where basically it was the idea to basically have a European access point for all the national code list extensions as well, and to make those available to other countries. So if somebody has done the work and basically created a code list extension or maybe a code list for one of the empty code lists that we have in Inspire, please make sure that we can include them in the registry of registry. And I think what goes to us, we need to promote that more. We really didn't get too much feedback at the time, but I think there is quite some value from what I hear from the discussions now.
Thank you, Michael. So that was question number 1. Now panelists have half a minute to take fresh Finnish water, and while they are doing that, there will be a question to the audience again, which should be there. So do you agree with Thorsten on the main, well, back and forth? So do you agree with Thorsten on the main challenges and obstacles? It will be there soon, I hope. How did you like the fresh water from Finland? It's coming right from the tap. You just, and then you can drink it. So you can answer these ones. And can you have the second one as well online at the same time? So how would you make a contribution to solving the challenges? So these both questions are online for the audience right now. We will move on to the second question, and we start with Michael again, maybe. What is the impact of open versus closed data and services? Does it affect your work? Well, maybe difficult for JRC in one way, but as we all know that open data, or formerly known as PSI directive, came into force recently. So what is the impact of open versus closed data and services? Michael.
I guess I already said it a bit in the first question. I think the main question is not so much open versus closed. Of course, open is nice and it makes things easier to develop. But I think the biggest challenge is really not knowing what the conditions are. So I think if you're finding data in a portal or on some government website, and it's not clear what the conditions are, so maybe there's no information. Maybe, and again, I would point people to the workshop that Torsten did yesterday, or you try and contact the people using the contact information from the metadata, and that is outdated. You don't reach anybody, you don't get an answer. That's the big problem. I keep hearing from also companies that want to develop business, we don't mind paying for data. Maybe we want to be able to negotiate, as long as it's clear what we can do with it. And the big problem is really spending time to actually trying to find out the conditions. So again, that would be a big. I think that is still a big challenge for us to try and get more easily usable license condition in clear language. In different languages. So if you want to use Finnish data and you only get the information in legal Finnish, or even if you get it in German or in English, for me, if it's legal German, I have troubles understanding what I can do and what I can't do with the data. So I think for me that is the big issue here.
Yes, I've also seen in many of the different services and metadata records the licenses to be defined or none, or it's just empty. So that's quite common. When it comes to the language of the license and terms and conditions, how to use it, for me as a software engineer background, I don't even understand it if it's in Finnish, but that's maybe a different problem. Okay, Lena, you can continue. Okay,
thank you. So in Finland, most data have been open for 10 years, a decade or so. Also, geospatial data of the National Land Survey and Finnish Environment Institute, for example. But that doesn't mean that everything is great and in place here. It doesn't mean that data flows as it should between different organizations and public bodies. So even if you have access to data, there is an overlap in data collection, and you might not just have access to updates and etc. So in that way, my experience is that it takes some extra work, and there are some challenges related into getting the data flow, even if it's open. And one answer to that is the geospatial platform that we are building at the moment, trying to solve some of the issues to get better data flows and harmonize data models for certain base map for the core data sets, for example, and to have a quality guard so that data providers on municipal level and regional level can check if their data is according to the national standards. I have some experience together with Manuel from Helcom in a project called Baltic Lines. A year ago or so, Helcom was trying to use Inspire harmonized data from all around the Baltic Sea, and Helcom were interested in particular in the services and the data that they could provide. And then there was a clear issue with the access and licensing it. I can't remember the exact figure on. You could found a lot of services, but under 50% were much. Was it 10% that was usable? 20? Yeah. So it seems to be a problem, a big problem. Yeah.
Thank you, Lena. Ilkka.
Thank you, Jari. I really agree with Michael on the way that we should do much better in showing kind of defining licensing models which would be shared across the Inspire data providers. So it would be like, I don't know, 4 or 5 different categories, like Creative Commons style. These are the license options that would be recommended for all the Inspire data. And if that would happen, then it would be much easier to choose and actually see what that means. So that would be one option. But I think mostly we should improve on the data portals and make it a bit like Amazon web store. So you can actually find useful things there. You can immediately see what's the price, is it available, there's a link there. You can get a sample of the data to play around, and if you're actually interested in, and if there is a price for accessing that, that's fine. But the terms and the pricing model needs to be there, because otherwise it takes just too much time for data for the software providers and teams which are actually just playing around with the data, seeing whether they could build a business case to actually try to find the suitable services and the suitable data sets. So I think open data is a very good thing in general, but if you do open data in a way that you just kind of fire and forget, so you just put everything out there, but you're not really interested in who's using it, how is it used, and if the users can actually get some value out of the data, it's not very useful. And if you have some kind of licensing model, whether that's with the price tag or not, then it kind of automatically creates you an incentive to understand the user community better. So it's not always a bad thing to have some kind of access control in there, but I think it should be openly available what's out there. So and that comes back to the expressing the metadata that we already have in a way that is understandable to the users.
Thank you, Ilkka.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. In my challenge, even I use data that was not immediately clear how to use it, reading just the metadata. So the Meteorological Institute from the Netherlands actually realized, okay, we have made this data from a supplier point of view, and users may really ask different questions, use it for different purposes than we may have intended it, but still true use cases. One other point is maybe a bit off topic, but strongly related. I'm not sure if I know the latest details, but around 1 year ago I started trying to create some Inspire metadata, and then I discovered that not all tooling is open to do this. This is maybe, if this is still the case, it's a bit open question. This might be a good starting point, so that software vendors see like what are there any obstacles to creating metadata regarding open tooling or closed tooling.
Yeah. Yes, that was a good example from the challenges, that it's a user perspective and developing something new and using the data. It can be difficult, and also the examples that if you are looking from European data portal or any other metadata service, and then if you have 60,000 records there or something, how to move forward with that. So it's always complicated. I have an additional question to Bas, because I looked from the audience questions. Do you want to continue your bicycle project across the border of Netherlands?
Yeah, I would love to, on the one hand. Yeah, I would love to. But and at the same time, this is... I think I will not. Because,
Okay,
I cannot fully explain why. I still have to think about this. We were actually considering of if the technique we used is interesting for organizations. We are willing to share it for free, and we will try what we can for sure to convince the Dutch Fietsersbond, who have a very nice route planner, to maybe integrate this in their offer for avid cyclists. So that's yeah, but it's free and open for who wants to.
Okay, thank you. And Michael, you had something.
Yeah, it's a nice cue for something that I wanted to raise about the challenges. That several of you mentioned that you would like to see this continued. So I was thinking back. Who remembers the ice bucket challenge? There was a hype some years ago where people just threw ice water over themselves and then challenged somebody else to do the same. So let me do something similar. And challenge some of the people in the audience, and I kind of already tried to do that a little bit with the colleagues from France yesterday, to challenge them to kind of come up with a challenge for the next Inspire conference. As you know, the submissions are already open for suggestions, for sessions, for abstracts as well. So if you thought this was a good idea, please think about quickly whether you would like to run a challenge for the Inspire Conference 2020. The submissions go until December, so you could launch the challenge in January if it's accepted, and you'd still be in time for the May conference. What I would really like to see is something like we just had the question, to have a challenge that basically does the same application in more than one country. Doesn't have to be necessarily cross-border touching on the borders, but could be in 2 different cities or 3 different cities across Europe, to basically use the same Inspire data from different countries to build one application that works basically more or less as out of the box in different countries. So I really like to see that a challenge like that in the next Inspire conference. So please, if you think with me that is a good idea, think about what data you have in your country, or try and talk to the colleagues in France to get together and launch a challenge for the next Inspire conference. And we're happy to help where we can, but it really depends on the data providers in the member states. To get 2-3 member states together and offer comparable data that could be used for a challenge. So here's my ice bucket challenge.
Can I respond to that? In that case, and since we are invited, I heard to come in that challenge, I will try to persuade the team to make our cycle route planner an international rain avoiding.
And as you know, everything is recorded over there as well. Okay, we had another or questions from for the audience. So, how big an impact does the lack of open geospatial data and services have on your work, on the work of your customers? What we can see as a result, it has a significant impact. And Thorsten vision has been fully and partly agreed, mainly. So that's some of the results. I believe we still have 20 minutes available. Okay. So I will go into the questions from the audience. I still have 12% of battery in my tablet. I hope it's okay. We have several different questions. We will not show those on the screen. There are something related to Brexit. There are other questions as well. If we start with data policies a little bit, even though this is a technical event, but is there a challenge between the Inspire data policy and national data policies? For example, personal data or security. Who would like to start? It's, yeah. Well, Michael is always ready to have a...
Well, I mean, obviously, I mean, if you talk about personal data protection, we have European rules. Everybody knows and loves GDPR. there are, of course, uncertainties in many organizations on whether and how that applies to their geospatial data. So there are, of course, issues with that. We've done some, or colleagues of ours have been doing some work on looking at the GDPR aspects for geospatial data and then how they can be addressed. So there is some work on that. But honestly, I don't really think that there are too many issues. I think it's coming back to the same question that that organizations need to think more and harder and better about the data policies that they want to apply for their data. I think that's something that's often forgotten. And I really like what Ilkka said earlier, is that we need to turn the Inspire obligations around and turn them into an opportunity. There's a lot of things that we've developed over the last few years, both in terms of guidelines and tools, that actually can help data providers to do a better jobs inside their organization. So that will actually make their life easier and help them to provide better data, independent whether then they also have the Inspire compliance checkbox. So maybe that's a bit off the question, but I don't really see the European versus national as such a big issue, because I mean, ideally the national policies need to follow any of the European rules anyway.
There is no need to have a full round. But if you have something to say, then feel free to answer. What I pick up next. It seems that data providers have the mentality of, okay, let's get it over with concerning Inspire. So, as little as required is done. What can be done? So, not to have only the minimum implementation, but to really get into this work. And also kind of a different question, but if we could start Inspire development again, what would you change?
And me again.
Well, I'm just a moderator, so
Okay.
it's.
I think we already answered these questions,
Yes.
and I think Torsten answered a lot of it in his keynote. I think we need to move away from the idea that Inspire is something separate from the normal business, and also I think Ilkka said it. It needs to be part of the normal business. And we need to show basically the benefits independent of the compliance checkbox. And we need to basically show how it's being used. So both at national level, at European level, and I know that there's let's say a task on us at European level to basically show the European level use case, but it's also a task for anybody like the challenge teams to actually show what can and maybe still cannot be done with the data that we have in the Inspire infrastructure, and basically tell it to the data providers. And we would love to use your data, but we can't, or we have difficulties to understand whether we can use it or not. And I think that is something that we need to move away from the compliance goal to the usability. And that's what we're trying to do, the geoportal efforts and the work that we're doing in the Jersey and with the colleagues from EA and the DG Environment, and we need to move more in this direction.
I think I can add something more to that from my experience. I've been doing the mapping, for example, from all cables and pipelines for my employer in the Netherlands, and I've found out that it can be quite complex to do this mapping from your domestic data set to an Inspire model. And for that reason, I think like 95% of the organizations owning those networks in the Netherlands, they have a service provider who makes the mapping for them, the conversion. And these service providers, what I've experienced for this team is that they do what the validating tools for Inspire require minimum, and there's not so much else to be done. So I think what I'm trying to say is that there's a role for the service providers who do the mapping for the companies owning the networks to do a bit more, and maybe the validation rules for the data should be a bit more stricter to achieve more than just the minimum in these data sets.
He said it, huh?
Yeah, so I agree with both you speakers here. I think coming back to the issue of making collecting the common understanding and the semantics in the data models, I've seen more than a few cases where data experts working on the national level struggle to understand how to do the mapping to Inspire data model. And this is an indication that something's wrong, because they are the experts on their data sets, and if they can't understand if they can't understand the concepts of the Inspire data models, then there's probably some two-way communication needed there. So even though I strongly agree with that, there's a lot of use already in the data models, but it needs to be more vetted with the actual data owners, that these are the concepts that we are already familiar with and we work with daily. So there's probably some room for improvement, and we need to have a nicely outlined way to also improve some of the details in the shared understanding of on the conceptual level, to get kind of what I would like to see is that there would be no Inspire experts anymore. No need for people who act as like a priest caste to interpret what's in the technical guidelines to the data experts, which they are the ones who should already be very familiar with the data and the concepts. And if we can reach that, I think a lot of good things will happen automatically.
I think a good way to lower, I fully agree with this discussion, and I think a good way to lower the barrier to have, I would encourage everyone that has a tool that you can do mapping with to make a 5-10 minute video for one case to show. With my tool, you do the mapping in this way, and a little bit open up some of the main mapping concepts in Inspire. This means that, and if we can share this on the same place, and if people can find it, so we need to, of course, communicate about it. But I think small things like this could help, and overall to make it easier. The mapping is the hard part, and also if we're missing code lists to really get them filled in the values. That's just a comment.
Yeah, I think in the end it basically will all come down to use. And if we manage to really get the data used more, and we get more feedback saying what works and what doesn't work, that will really help us with all of these things. Basically saying, okay, we will find out what works and what doesn't work, and we can improve it. But so that's why we're stressing so much about the data availability and the licensing stuff and so on, because that is still the big obstacle now to make data being used.
Thank you. There are several different questions related to data usage and findability and things like that. So there are several very interested users, and they would like to use Inspire data, but they had difficulties finding the data they are looking for. What am I supposed to do to solve my problems? And/or how do we get feedback loop from data users to providers and back? Very important kind of audience and the kind of dialogue between them. Who would like to start? I believe this is the last question, so you can breathe shortly.
I would like maybe coming to the last part of the question on how to enable the feedback. I think there are already good, very well vetted models in collecting user feedback on resources made available. So I think the one tool that comes to my mind immediately is the events like this, and even more the data challenges, hackathons, where you actually get people to try out, discuss it with each other, try out different solutions, and discover the ways to actually use the data and what works and what not. And in that kind of situations, the data providers should be available there and keep their ears open to hear how the users are actually seeing the data and seeing the data access, and what are the obstacles that they are facing. I would like to kind of make a comparison to one of the fields that I'm familiar with, which is the usability evaluation. There's a method where the user is kind of made to do certain actions with a software or prototype without any other help than just the instructions on what they should get done. And that's very, very useful for developers to see that, oh my God, they are struggling. They don't see that button there, and that they should be pushing that. And it's, in many cases, it's very difficult for the organizers to say that, don't say anything. You can't instruct them to do that. And that kind of similar approach for how the data is actually used and how the people may not understand it the same way as I intended to is really useful tool for getting feedback. And of course, there are various ways to do that also via web-based means, but I think the key is the discussion.
Okay, thank you. I will not open any more questions, but the kind of floor is yours if you have anything else to say right now. We have a final question to the audience as well. So Pekka will put it online. If you have something in your mind, then you can talk, of course. So did you enjoy your stay at Inspire Helsinki 2019? There will be, food was great, and challenges were interesting. So very. Yeah, you can select several options as well, so that's a possibility as well. It was too dark outside. Well, it was a wonderful weather. You should come here after 2 months, and then you would see when it's dark. Okay, but I think we conclude and close this session. Well, you had something to...
Yeah, maybe one of the questions that is not on your screen here, is this something we should do again? I mean, we started this off with saying, okay, it was kind of a kind of an issue that we turned into an opportunity. So there was nothing planned for 2019 as in the sense of a normal conventional conference. Is this something that we should repeat as a standalone event? Is this something that we should try and integrate into the main conference? Is it good to have it separate? Is it good to have it... So, I don't know, I would like to hear if there's any thoughts on that from the audience. Who thinks it's good to have this as maybe a yearly standalone event, more or less like we did it today, rather than integrating it into the larger conference? Okay, not so many. Okay, yeah. Okay. So the idea would be, if there is a conference, it should be part of the conference, I gather. If it's... Yeah, or every second year. Okay. No, but if you have feedback on that, please share that with us or with the local organizers, either by talking to us now or sending us an email. So we're actually, maybe we can think about sending out a kind of a questionnaire after to the participants.
Yeah, that's the
That's the plan. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Perfect.
So that's the plan, to have a questionnaire afterwards, so then you can fill in your feedback to this event and also for the future plans. So I mean, it's almost 12 o'clock and we try to keep sharp on time in Finland usually, so we close this session and let's give a big applause to panelists.